Rain hammered the cracked pavement as a man stumbled across the dark street, clutching a small paper bag like it was the only thing keeping him alive. His breathing was uneven, his clothes were soaked through, and the look in his eyes was the kind of hopelessness you only see in someone who feels like the entire world has already forgotten them. Behind him, the glowing lights of a luxury restaurant flickered through the rain. Inside those walls, people laughed, toasted glasses, and celebrated life. Outside, Marcus Reed felt like he was slowly disappearing from it. He stopped under a dim street lamp and leaned against the cold metal pole, trying to steady his shaking hands. Inside the paper bag was a single sandwich, the first real meal he had managed to buy in 2 days. For a moment he just stared at it, swallowing the hunger clawing at his stomach. Then he whispered something quietly to himself. Just one more day, just make it one more day. Have you ever reached a moment where survival itself feels like the hardest job in the world? Marcus knew that feeling too well. 6 months ago his life looked completely different. He had a small apartment, a stable job repairing cars at a local garage, and a quiet routine that wasn't glamorous, but it was enough. Enough to feel human. Then everything collapsed. The garage closed unexpectedly after the owner suffered a stroke. Without warning, Marcus and the other workers were suddenly unemployed. At first he wasn't worried. He had some savings. He believed another job would come soon. But weeks turned into months. Bills piled up. Rent went unpaid. The landlord eventually changed the locks on his apartment door. Just like that, Marcus found himself standing on the sidewalk with a single suitcase, watching the life he had built disappear behind a locked door. Have you ever watched your entire world fall apart piece by piece? Marcus had, and every day since then felt heavier than the last. He pulled the sandwich halfway out of the bag, the smell of warm bread and melted cheese hitting him like a wave. His stomach growled painfully. Just as he was about to take a bite, he heard a soft voice nearby. "Excuse me, sir." Marcus looked up. Across the street, under the awning of a small convenience store, stood a young boy. Maybe 7 years old. His thin jacket hung loosely over his small shoulders, and his dark hair was damp from the rain. The boy wasn't alone. Beside him sat a frail elderly woman in a wheelchair, wrapped in a worn blanket. The boy hesitated before speaking again. "Sir, do you have any food?" Marcus froze. For a moment, his mind went completely blank. His eyes dropped back down to the sandwich in his hands. The only food he had. The only thing standing between him and another long, hungry night. He looked back at the boy. The child's eyes were filled with quiet hope, but also the kind of fear that comes from hearing no too many times. Marcus's chest tightened. Have you ever been forced to choose between helping someone else and helping yourself survive? It's not as simple as people think. Hunger changes things. Desperation changes things. But something inside Marcus stirred. Something small, but powerful. Slowly, he walked across the street. The boy watched nervously. Marcus crouched down in front of him. "What's your name, kid?" "Luis." "And who's this?" Luis gently touched the elderly woman's arm. "My grandma." The woman looked up weakly. Her eyes were tired but kind. "Don't mind us," she said softly. "Luis just worries about me too much." Luis shook his head quickly. "She hasn't eaten since yesterday." Marcus felt something twist inside his chest. He looked down at the sandwich again. Warm, fresh, the only meal he had. Then he sighed quietly. Without saying a word, he placed the sandwich into Luis's hands. The boy blinked in surprise. "Really?" Marcus nodded. "Split it with your grandma." Luis's face lit up with pure joy. "Thank you." The boy quickly broke the sandwich in half and handed a piece to the elderly woman. She looked at Marcus with quiet gratitude. "You didn't have to do that." Marcus shrugged lightly. "It's just a sandwich." But as he stood up, his stomach twisted again with hunger. The rain had started falling harder now. Luis looked up at him. "Do you want some too?" Marcus smiled faintly. "No, kid, you two needed more." He turned and began walking away before they could thank him again. The cold wind hit his face as he stepped back onto the dark street. And suddenly the hunger felt even sharper. But strangely, his chest also felt lighter. Have you ever noticed that helping someone else can ease a pain you didn't even know you were carrying? Marcus walked for several blocks, his stomach aching. Eventually he reached a small bus stop bench and sat down heavily. The city around him buzzed with life. Cars passed. People rushed by with umbrellas and briefcases. No one noticed the man sitting quietly on that bench. No one noticed the silent battle he was fighting just to keep going. Hours passed. The rain finally slowed. Marcus leaned back against the bench and stared up at the cloudy sky. He wondered how long someone could keep living like this. No job, no home, no certainty about tomorrow. Have you ever wondered how close a person can come to giving up, before something changes? Marcus didn't know the answer. But he was closer to that edge than he wanted to admit. Just as his eyes began to close from exhaustion, a black car slowly pulled up in front of the bus stop. Marcus barely noticed at first. Cars stopped near the curb all the time. But this one didn't drive away. The door opened. A tall man in a dark suit stepped out. Marcus frowned slightly. The man looked around before walking directly toward him. Marcus Reed. Marcus sat up straighter. Yes. The man nodded politely. My name is Thomas. Marcus blinked in confusion. Do I know you? Thomas shook his head. No. Then how do you know my name? Thomas gave a small smile. Someone asked me to find you. Marcus felt a strange tension rise in his chest. Who? Thomas gestured toward the car. You should come with me. Marcus laughed quietly. I'm not getting into a stranger's car. That's understandable. Thomas opened the back door slightly. Then maybe you should hear who sent me. Marcus hesitated. Fine. Thomas's voice was calm. A woman named Isabella Grant. Marcus frowned. The name meant nothing to him. Never heard of her. Thomas studied him carefully. She's the owner of Grant Industries. Marcus's eyes widened slightly. Even someone living on the street knew that name. Isabella Grant was one of the wealthiest business leaders in the country. What would someone like that want with me? Thomas's expression softened slightly. She saw what you did tonight. Marcus blinked. What? At the convenience store. The memory of the sandwich flashed through his mind. How would she know about that? Thomas pointed across the street. Marcus followed his gaze. High on the corner of the convenience store building, a security camera blinked quietly. Marcus looked back at Thomas. So she saw me give away my dinner. Thomas nodded. Yes. Marcus frowned. That's not exactly headline news. Thomas smiled slightly. You'd be surprised. Marcus leaned back against the bench again. Look, man, I'm tired. If this is some kind of joke. It's not. Thomas reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small card. He handed it to Marcus. On the card was a simple message. Sometimes one act of kindness changes more than one life. Marcus looked up. What is this? Thomas's voice lowered slightly. Miss Grant wants to meet you. Marcus stared at him. Why? Thomas's answer came quietly. Because the boy you helped tonight is her nephew. Marcus's heart skipped. The world suddenly felt very different. And Marcus had no idea that giving away one small sandwich was about to change his life forever. Marcus stared at the card in his hand as if it might suddenly vanish. The streetlights flickered faintly above the quiet bus stop, casting long shadows across the wet pavement. Rainwater still dripped from the roof, tapping softly against the concrete like a slow clock counting down the seconds. Her nephew, Marcus repeated quietly. Thomas nodded. Yes, the boy's name is Luis. Marcus felt a strange mixture of confusion and disbelief swirl inside his chest. The kid from the convenience store. The same one. Marcus leaned forward slightly, trying to process what he had just heard. But, he said the woman was his grandmother. Thomas sighed gently. She is. Luis lives with his grandmother because his parents passed away 2 years ago. Marcus swallowed. And Isabella Grant is related to them. Yes, Thomas replied. She's Luis's aunt. Marcus shook his head slowly. So, the richest woman in the city just happened to see me give her nephew a sandwich. Thomas's voice remained calm. She didn't just happen to see it. Marcus frowned. What do you mean? Thomas sat down on the other end of the bus stop bench. Miss Grant visits her mother every week, he explained. She was inside the store